Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Hey, good morning, Sudbury. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh, and I'm glad to be here with you today. Glad that you're here with us. We're live on CKLU 96.7 FM, also streaming at cklu.ca. Make sure to click on the Radio Player Canada app to stream us, and if you want to take us with you, you can just download it, take us with you, and listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device, along with other programming from CKLU. While you're on the website, make sure to just see what you like, buy some merch, support the station, and if there's something that, you already have, the CKLU shirt or the hat or the mug or whatever else that we have on the site there to support the station, and you don't really need anything, you can just hit the donate button, and if you have the means and if it's something that you feel is important, CKLU, Sudbury's Campus and Community Radio, if you feel that's an important thing to contribute to and make sure the lights are on, the airwaves are open, then you can just contribute whatever you can afford to keep the station alive, keep us on track, to keep a voice of the community alive, kind of thing, as in this day of seeing so many all things local be under attack, whether it's business, whether it's journalism, kind of thing. So it's all up to us to maintain this type of a service to the community, right? So appreciate because it wasn't for you, the station would not be here, whether it's people donating, volunteering their time, volunteering their efforts, their talents, kind of thing, to keeping the station going. And we really appreciate all those who are working together, from the board of directors all the way to on-air personalities and people working on computers and things like that. We're very thankful and grateful that we're able to keep this Sudbury institution alive. And, any comments made on this show in particular do not necessarily reflect those of Laurentian University, under which we are Sudbury's campus and community radio station. There's the Laurentian University part of CKLU, and the community part, the board of directors, the on-air personalities, the GM, the volunteers. This show doesn't necessarily reflect their points of views either. They are that entirely of myself, co-hosts, guests, people commenting, and our own, and that's it. And we own those comments. So we're also streaming live at facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News. So make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow the page and the channel. We're also found on demand after the live show on those two platforms, along with Twitter, now x.com/Sudbury News, and Sudbury.news, which is our local news aggregator, meaning all the news comes onto one page. Now that the government's made a policy where Facebook, it's illegal, they're not allowed to share news due to the government's policies, the most widely used platform, social media platform in the world. There's no news allowed to be shared on it. So we've made this news aggregator so that way people can just go to it, check out all the news. And again, it's Sudbury.news. It's not a .com, .ca, .org, .net. It's .news, Sudbury.news. Very easy to find, and it's exactly what it is. It's all the news from Sudbury, CBC, CTV, Sudbury Star, Sudbury.com, all in one location. Soon to have the Francophone journalistic outlets as well on the page, on the website. So look forward to that in the near future. And so just encourage everybody, invite everybody to comment on either Facebook or YouTube for the live show. We'll do our best to read the comments for those listening, get them up on the screen for those watching, whether live or on demand. Now, afterwards, the conversation can continue on Facebook. So I would encourage everyone, if you have something to contribute to whatever we were discussing on the show, during the show, and you have something that you wanted to say to add to the conversation, please do so on Facebook. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We're really grateful for you and for the opportunity to do this each and every day and to spend this time with you, whether it's on the radio or on the live stream. It really is, it's very therapeutic for me, especially being able to express how I feel about the world we live in, whether it's locally or abroad. It's very therapeutic. I'm able to kind of form my thoughts and opinions, and based on really great conversation and from news articles from our news organizations in Sudbury. And it's been a really great 2.5 years so far of Sudbury.news. Now, we were, 4 years pretty much of Sudbury Sports Talk before this, but I really appreciate the this opportunity each and every weekday morning between 7:30 and 8:30 to have a conversation with all y'all. So, without further ado, you know that saying, adieu. We will dive into the weather. We'll be back then with news headlines, your comments, and more. Right after this, stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. It is our focus on our Friday focus on climate, and a lot of people, are interested in the climate these days. Why is it in the news so much? Why is there so much attention on it? Why are there so many government policies? What's happening to our world in terms of the climate information that we have? We really want to focus on that at least one day a week, and we've chosen Fridays because there isn't a day of the week that starts with a C. So can't have the whatever climate day. So Friday's focus is on climate. So anyways, stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. We'll talk about these things and more right after this. Stay tuned for the weather. And weather brought to you by Duct Check. For all your duct cleaning and inspection needs, you give them a shout at 705-918-4848 or visit them online at ductcheck.com. 10 degrees currently. It's mostly cloudy. Today we can expect periods of rain ending near noon, then cloudy with a 40% chance of showers, about 5 millimeters worth, and then high of 12. And the UV index is 2 or low. So the high is 12 today. So very cool. Tonight, showers. Winds will be gusting up to 40 kilometers per hour, low of 6. Saturday, showers, 5 to 10 millimeters. And winds gusting to 50 kilometers per hour. Temperature steady near 7. 7 degrees. That's going to be, and with the rain on top of that, it's just going to be very fall-like weather. Again, Saturday, 7 and showers. Getting a little warmer on Sunday with showers, high of 16. Then a 30% chance of showers on Monday with a high of 21, then 25 on Tuesday, high of 25. Oh, mix of sun and cloud on Tuesday, high of 25. And then Wednesday, same thing. Mix of sun and cloud, 25. Mix of sun and cloud, 26 on Thursday. So just in time for the weekend, we have cold and raining, and then beautiful during the week. So just what everyone wanted, I think. Eh? All right. So here you go. Your weather as of midnight. I think we can probably get a more recent satellite image than that. Hopefully, I don't know where it went. so now it just totally disappeared. Not sure. This particular website is being very clunky lately. I don't know if they're just, I have no idea why. But as of 12 midnight, this is what your weather looked like with a lot of that precipitation going through Sudbury, an area on its way to the east. But apparently we're going to be getting more of it. So expect it to be wet and cold over the next couple days and then warming up after that. That's your weather, brought to you by Duck Check for your inspection, duct cleaning and inspection needs, whether it's residential, commercial, or industrial. Give them a shout at 705-918-4848. Let them know we sent you and they'll treat you really good. We'll be back with news headlines, your comments, and more right after this. Okay, yeah, and we're back, and you stuck around, and grateful that you did, and more of you are on, and that's cool too. And we'll see who's here, and it's Nana. First of all, to YouTube, good morning. Another rainy Friday, but as you always say, good for the garden. Blessings, everyone. Yes, and it is good for the garden, even though the gardens are kind of coming to the end stage, right, of their life this year. And with these low temperatures, you definitely want to maybe take some precautions. I don't know how frost and rain work together, but you definitely want to look after your garden to make sure you can keep your hard work and not lose your vegetables. Okay, good morning, everyone, from Rainy Berry. That's Marianne, liked and shared, as usual. And Judy, good morning to you as well. And Monique, good morning. Sudbury with a rain cloud emoji. David, good morning. Take care. Stay safe. And I hope you're feeling well these days, David, and on the mend health-wise. Denise, blessings to everyone. Same to you, Denise. And Liette, good morning from Collingwood. Rainy Collingwood. Collingwood with the rainy emoji. Belinda, let's see if you can pick up the spirits of this day, this gloomy day. Good morning. For all the cruelty and hardships of our world, we are not mere prisoners of fate. Our actions matter, and we can bend history in the direction of justice. I've noticed a theme in your quotes in the last week or so, Belinda, and yeah, things are heating up. Apparently, I really appreciated a conversation on CBC radio last night, driving in anticipation for work today. I was listening to the ideas, and they had some professors, academics, other people from all over the world talking about free speech, or just, the right to speak your mind, and the state of the world it's in right now. And I thought, wow, for being on the CBC, and not even for being on the CBC, it could have been on any station or podcast or video. It was spot on. They were telling it like it is. The laws are the laws. The laws are actually pretty darn good when it comes to freedom of expression in Canada, freedom of speech in the United States. And really, they're already set up for prosperity and people to be able to not be canceled all over the place, and have to form an, if someone says something that offends you, you say, well, I appreciate your opinion, but I just like to let you know that I have an alternate perspective on what you just said, and be respectful. And that's the way they were talking. And I was just a breath of fresh air in this world of, all this kind of stuff. And one of the academics was saying, we throw around this hate speech idea way too much. He said most of the things that are coined as hate speech is not hate speech at all, according to the law. And things are getting very skewed these days. So incredible that it was on the CBC for one, and just that they're having this conversation in public. And it helped me feel vindicated with what we do on this show every day. We do that very thing. We talk about the news. We share our opinions, even though We may not agree with each other. By not agreeing, we are more enriched a lot of the times with our opinions on what's going on in our community and in our world. It is what it is. We're here to keep it alive as much as we can. And those particular people talking on the show last night were saying people need to do it more. You need to stand up and take a stance and speak your mind and get better at speaking what you believe clearly. And anyways, I think we're on the right track here. And with that, good morning, Mike. Happy Friday, friends. Thanks for being on, Mike. And I know you guys have had the interesting meeting this last week and some interesting times we've been talking about on the show. Marianne, absolutely. This is how we learn off of each other and get to the truth. 100%. Penny, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us. Marianne, it is September after all with the weather that we're getting. 100% agreed. Belinda has something for Mike. Were you able to research the chemtrails that are sprayed over Sudbury? We were hit pretty hard here yesterday, at least 6 to 7 passovers. Well, yeah, I noticed the cloud cover that was coming in. Even CBC, as I listen to because I drive in the car and there's no other talk radio other than sometimes on CKLU. The weather came in and they said, it's mostly cloudy in Sudbury. And I looked up and there wasn't a cloud in the sky, although there was chemical spraying that looks like clouds. That's all there was at the time. And I know the difference because you can tell. It's like when you eat a banana and then you have those fake candy bananas, those yellow fake candy bananas, and someone asks you, which of those two are a real banana? And you go, well, I know that. And this one, because it's a real banana. I know the difference between a real one and a fake one. It's the same thing. I know the difference between a real cloud and fake clouds, or chemtrails as they call them. Jets pass over. They make those very crisp straight lines in the sky. A lot of times there's multiple, but if you take the time, if you have the time, or just kind of go back about an hour later or whatever, or 15 minutes later, half an hour later, and you'll see those straight lines that were very crisp and straight and narrow start to expand. And then eventually there's a bunch of them, they all expand, they roll into one another and they look like a cloud. It's that simple. Why it's there? There's a lot of dispute out there. There's many scientists that say, yeah, we're doing it to cool down the earth from climate change, from the earth warming. There's some people that say, like Google, the top 10 things that come up on Google say it's a conspiracy theory. I'm not sure why. If main scientists out there, we've shown it on the show many times, say that they're doing it on purpose. Again, right? What we believe about it is neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is it's happening, and you can see it with your eyes. It's there. It's not hard to see. What we do about it, or what can we find out about it? Yeah, you can. There's enough out there to know what's in the chemicals that are being sprayed and what they could do to human beings and to life in general. There is a lot of information out there on that, and you can find it. Just don't go to the top 10 searches on Google, because you'll just see debunking articles for some strange reason. But you can tell right away that that's just not. It's like the tobacco industry saying, cigarettes don't cause cancer, as the top 10 debunking links on Google. That's where we're at right now in terms of that. We're like back in the 1960s where tobacco industry was fighting through whatever means they had to disprove the fact that smoking tobacco could be harmful to your health. Marianne, Belinda noticed we were getting hit with them yesterday also in Barrie. Denise says, what is Bill 69 in Canada? Bill C-69 overhauled the entire environmental assessment of major projects and made the regulatory system more complex. Bill C-69, climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, energy policy, So if you want to look into that, again, right, we do our own research. We do our own research and find out for ourselves. We don't just let media force feed us or spoon feed us things. You need to, when you hear something and go, oh, that sounds crazy. Oh, that sounds like it could never, or wow, if that was true, that would be pretty bizarre. Well, yeah, when you hear things like that, just look into it. A little bit more than the top 5, 6, 10 searches on Google. Go a little deeper. Anyways, what is the climate policy in Canada? This is Denise as well. On March 2022, the Government of Canada introduced Canada's 2030 emission reduction plan, which provides a roadmap for the Canadian economy to achieve 40 to 45% emission reductions below 2005 levels by 2030, building upon the actions outlined in Canada's previous climate plans, August 26, 2024. And she gives the link here, or just at least you can find it at canada.ca, Canada's climate plans. So people need to read, people need no research. 2 bills that they want to pass into law, pretty scary. And with the Prime Minister stacking the Senate, will be hard to get the bills thrown out. Lots of stuff going on behind the scenes. Denise says, what is the United Nations policy on climate change? To limit global warming to 1.5% greenhouse gas emissions must peak before 2025 at the latest and be declined by 43% by 2030. And we showed a video on this show a little while back showing the link between scientists that believe in depopulating the earth because it's overpopulated and a lot of the climate policies that end up with people would end up with population decrease as the result of these policies, right? So a lot of the people that want less of you, less of me on the earth, you know, they get behind these climate policies after flying in their private jets to these conferences and stuff. You know, there's so much hypocrisy in their lifestyles and in everything they do compared to what they say. It's crazy. Denise, also, the machines and the pollution they create using uranium and other toxins to create their batteries for their new world order is much more toxic than what we have today. And Miles, good day, folks, listening to CBC Radio, pushing the climate agenda now, saying logging is accounting for 20% of Canada's carbon output now. What will they think of next? Yeah, and you know, the real data on that with our boreal forest, we're actually already net positive when it comes to our carbon emissions. We're actually helping the world reduce carbon emissions just from our boreal forests. Craziness. If you really look at, you know, we know trees eat carbon. Just take a drive from Sudbury to Timmins. Count the trees. And that's only between Sudbury and Timmins if you look on the map. Now picture the rest of Canada. Those are small trees. Really, just really. Okay, with this, okay, I think it's perfect timing. We'll see if I can cue it up fast enough with the volume. But just I was going to end with this yesterday, but I think today would be perfect. If I can get it here. There it is. Let's see if I can get it up fast enough. We'll get it on the screen. It's just a funny infomercial. Goes along with what we're talking, right? To do your own research about things. Think for yourself.
I used to believe everything I'd see on the news, but that's before I discovered a brain.
A brain is meant for everyday use. Those living with moderate to severe stupidity have seen immediate improvement in common sense with a brain.
I thought the government had my best interests at heart, and then a friend told me about a brain.
Talk to your doctor about what news sources you obey. A brain may also lower your desire to take life-altering advice from celebrities.
Getting lectured about my carbon footprint from people with 3 private jets used to make sense. But thanks to a brain, now I can think for myself every day. When my disregard for third grade biology began to flare up, I knew it was time for a brain.
Do not try a brain if you're allergic to a brain. Common side effects may include accountability, discernment, homeschooling your kids, a better understanding of economics, awareness of the stupidity of socialism, and diarrhea.
For tethering yourself to reality, the only no-brainer is choosing a brain. Ask your doctor if a brain is right for you.
For more information, visit tryabrain.com.
Not bad, huh? Not bad. I think I'm going to keep this one. I think this one's going to come in handy for many a show after this one. So stay tuned for more of the infomercial. That might be just a commercial that we can use from now on. Just a word from our sponsor. We're sponsored by a brain. All right. So on with the, if people only understood, this is Marianne, how we have one of the lowest emissions in the G7. People just need to look outside and watch the trees. If you garden, look at your gardens. Doesn't take a scientist to figure that out. Oh, I think you're ahead of me on my comment there, Marianne. Accounting to the agency, which kWh of the kilowatts, I think, of batteries produced would generate the equivalent of 150 to 200 kilograms of CO2, a figure based on the world's predominantly fossil fuel energy mix, 50 to 70% of electricity produced. So again, some facts here. It's up to us to look into these things. Everyone believing this will need to redeem. We will need to redeem science for sure, Marianne. I agree with you on that. So Mike says, to be honest, now my eyes are starting to go. I have only conducted some light Google searches. Yeah, exactly. That won't find you anything worthwhile. I have had YouTube videos shared with me with persons expressing their belief that this is happening, but I have not been able to find info an airport being used to do this, or a pilot or other persons involved in such an initiative. So I know that there are people watching here. If you want to let Mike know or send him documentaries that you have, I think the one Dimming of the Sun, if you Google Dimming of the Sun documentary, Mike, they have interviews with military pilots and things like that are involved in it. And it's basically a military operation. So airports, local airports and international airports, things like that won't have any whatever information on that. It's a military exercise. So feel free to send Mike the information, everyone, of what he requested. He wants interviews with real, firsthand people that have experience with this stuff. Real information, the history of it. I know in Dimming of the Sun, the documentary, we played quite a few times of it on the show, and I might still have it queued up here. And maybe I'll just play a part of it, just hope that it's at the spot where there is some of this information. Or if we don't live all that far apart from each other, I don't think. When I see it in the sky, I'll text you and I'll say, look up now. And then I'll text you back and say, okay, now look up again. And you can see it for yourself. Like you can watch the progression of the jets flying over, leaving these trails. And then when I text you again, you'll see them now wider. And then I'll text you again when they're even wide. And then I'll say, now see, it's cloudy, totally cloudy outside. How did that happen? We didn't see any real cloud formations coming in. We only saw the clouds formed from the jet trails, right? So it's an experiment you can do on your own without any outside information. Firsthand information by looking up. And then you can also then find more information from the information that people will be sending you. And if you just look up Dimming of the Sun, or you go to geoengineering.org. geoengineering, which is the scientific term of what's going on above our heads. Geoengineering. They are engineering the skies for us. So that way, for whatever reasons they have. And I think one of the things is to dim the sun. So that way we can somehow prevent global warming. But the materials that they're using in the chemicals they're using in the spray is very detrimental to human beings. But they'd rather cool down the earth. It doesn't matter if they're killing everybody, right, with it. So this is the controversy. And I think this is why they don't really want it to be 100% mainstream. Because if people really know what's being sprayed over their heads, they'd be up in arms, right? And including you and your kids, Mike. So it's not just me. I mean, if you go down in a mine and you're worried about what you're breathing in, but yet they're spraying dangerous toxic chemicals over your head, why wouldn't you be just as worried about that? You know what I mean? Like, I know you're in the safety field, right? So it just makes sense. But it could be so big of a thing that you're like, well, why isn't CBC talking about this? And I think the same thing. Like, CBC should be talking about this. I've sent them many voicemails and things while it's happening. I said, as long as there's a journalist in there at the moment, look up in the sky and you tell me what's going on right now. But nothing, right? So I'm wondering just as much as you are. Not surprised, no response from emails either, and that is Belinda. Denise says, in Africa, they're not allowed to go into the forest. They're not allowed to help themselves unless they play a new world order game. I'm watching around the world what's happening. Canada, we are harmless. Okay. Well, it looks like we've really dived into this whole focus on the climate already. I was hoping to go through some local news stories first, which is what we try and do every day. But also, we do want to focus on this at least one day out of the week, right? So it is a huge topic that affects us locally as well as abroad. And Louise, good morning, y'all. And Belinda is just urging you here, Mike, to kind of look into it a little bit more, and maybe some of the suggestions I gave might help this morning. And and some people feel that being on city council, there is some responsibility to this along with local issues. And Denise is saying, it goes along with, there's been some genocides in history, and this might be another one in the making. I'm just interpreting that, but anyways. And Monique on YouTube, like and shared, hand pink waving. Thank you. And I'm grateful for you being on YouTube. Yeah, you like a brain. I should make like a just some candies in a little container that looks like it's like Advil or something, and make a brain, actually make it, and then we can just put it up on a website and people can actually order it and give it out to people if they feel they need to start thinking a little bit more. You can give them a brain, and it's just candy. Hey, I think you guys came up with a good idea. Right? Even all those sitting in government positions and their families are getting hit. Yeah, exactly. You'd think we'd all be worried about stuff like that. Liette says, parents don't lie, just need to look up. Oh, patents. Yeah, there are many patents around these things. Just look up the chemtrails and weather modification patents. So you could do that too. Weather modification patents or chemtrail patents. And there are many credible expert sources and actual true scientific data available for all to see. Anyone saying otherwise is choosing to be ignorant. And it is true in some ways. Like, ignorance is bliss, especially with stuff like that. What do you think happened in Germany in the late 1930s and 40s? Like, I mean, ouch. I've often been perplexed on how did that happen with society? How could a whole country and people go along with something so crazy? But I think I'm witnessing it on a worldwide scale right now. So I'm able to see it, how it's incrementally like the frog in the pot kind of thing able to happen. Bonjour, ma belle. That's Marianne. Okay, so anyways, Debbie, good morning to you. Happy face emoji. Yeah, the patents have been out for this since the 1800s for sure. And we didn't have bees in our yard this year. I never hear counselors talk about the spraying over our head and how it's affecting our lives. Yeah, it's true. It's one of those things hidden in plain sight, if you will. Claire, good morning to you. Thanks for being on. Google is compromised, just letting you know for sure. And Miles says, if they were really serious about carbon emissions in the world, they would be looking at India and China, who alone account for 40% of the world's carbon emissions and show no signs of cutting them. Yeah, you would think, someone like the United States or all of the G7 who are all upset would actually go in and invade these countries if it was that big of a deal and put them all on solar and wind because they're destroying the planet. They'd have to invade them. It would be such a noble, worthy cause to go in and just go to war over this thing. But it's not to that point. They know this. They know it's just a political thing. My opinion. That's why they're not doing these types of things, and just celebrities fly on their private jets to conferences and then scold everybody on their social medias and in the mainstream media. Okay, so Bob, thanks for being with us this morning. You showed British government in the video saying, yes, they do, and why, and you shared that with me, and I did share it on the show. And I guess just a lot of times people don't have a chance to be on all the shows or whatever, so kind of miss it. That's why we keep revisiting the subject every Friday, right? Focus on the climate. So here you go, John Stossel talking about the climate. Just one of my favorite journalists. I like his approach. I like his way. I think he does a great job. And this is John Stossel talking about the climate today and our climate focus on the climate. We'll be back right after this.
And fossil fuels across the globe.
Instead of using fossil fuels, we're told we should use what they call clean energy. Wind, solar, and hydropower. Hydro's the most reliable because unlike wind and solar, water power is steady. But now, politicians want to destroy dams and their hydropower.
The federal government recommending swift action on the lower Snake River dams.
Removing 4 dams.
We need to breach those dams, and we need to do it now. Now's the time. Our fish are on the line.
Activists claim the dams threaten the Snake River. They call it
the most endangered river in this country
because they say the dams are
decimating the salmon population.
It's true that pregnant fish need to swim upriver to have their babies, and now there are dams in the way. But still, today, most fish pass. How?
Well, there are ladders on the dams that allow passage.
Todd Myers of the Washington Policy Center has worked for decades on salmon recovery. Recovery includes
new innovative surface passage structures for fish
and fish ladders that help fish get past the dams.
We have made so much progress that we can have salmon recovery and the electricity it provides.
But using the word recover makes it sound like there was this horrible decimation.
There was.
When dams were first built without the innovations that keep fish away from the turbines, lots of salmon were killed. But that's no longer true. Today,
between 96 and 98% of the salmon successfully pass each dam, which is why the federal scientific agencies say that salmon will recover with the dams in place.
But gullible media still repeat the activists' claims.
The salmon population near extinction.
That's simply not true. All you have to do is to go and look at the actual population numbers to know that that's absurd.
Here they are. Although the first dams did kill lots of salmon, in recent years, salmon numbers have been higher than they were in the 80s or 90s. But somehow, government media claim
salmon numbers are so low that tribal biologists say some species have reached a quasi-extinction threshold.
They make these claims because they know people will believe them.
just sounds right.
Yeah, exactly. They don't even need to check it. They just absolutely believe it.
Extinction of salmon are unacceptable.
They've never been closer to extinction than they are today.
People don't want to believe that their favorite environmental group is dishonest.
We don't, but some are. They raise money by scaring people, even when their fear-mongering is totally wrong. In 1999, environmental groups took out this ad saying salmon will be extinct by 2017.
And yet, 2015, 2016, 2017, populations were higher than in 1999.
Did the environmentalists apologize?
No, they repeat almost the exact same arguments today. They just changed the dates.
We invited 10 activist groups that want to destroy the dams to come here and defend their claims about salmon going extinct. Not one would agree. And I guess I understand why, because they've already convinced the public.
Calling from France.
Calling in from France, Australia, about the Snake River Dam?
I'm calling from Australia.
I'm calling from São Paulo, Brazil.
New York?
Nashville, Tennessee.
In the court of public opinion, they're winning.
We're up against a lot. It's very difficult.
It's so dumb. We waste billions on pointless things like environmental subsidies that mostly help rich people. And now politicians want to waste billions destroying dams?
There is no viable path that can allow us to keep the dams in place.
We keep doing dumb things. We put money into places where it doesn't have an environmental impact, and then we wonder 10, 20, 30 years why we haven't made any environmental progress.
They're willing to tear down these dams even though they generate tons of clean electricity.
Almost the same amount as all of the wind and solar turbines in Washington state. Imagine if I told the environmental community we need to tear down every wind turbine and every solar panel in the state. They would lose their minds, but that's essentially what they're advocating by tearing down the Snake River dams.
They say just build more wind turbines.
The problem is that several times a year, there's no wind.
Things are heating up, and it's only going to get hotter from here.
We saw this recently when we had a hot streak and the wind disappeared for 3 or 4 days. So you could build 10 times as many wind turbines, but if there's no wind, there's no electricity. Hydro, you can turn on and off whenever it's needed. So destroying hydro and replacing it with wind makes absolutely no sense. We'll do serious damage to our electrical grid for a tiny benefit to salmon. And yet they're willing to pay all of those costs.
It's not their money.
Exactly. If you want to spend $35 billion on salmon, there's lots of things we can do that would have a real impact.
Like?
Seals and sea lions.
They eat lots of salmon.
The Washington Academy of Sciences says that unless we reduce the populations, we will not recover salmon.
People used to hunt the sea lions.
Yeah, and that's why the populations are higher today than they were 200 years ago.
The public doesn't want you shooting sea lions.
That's exactly right.
So instead, politicians push destroying dams.
Because it's sexy and dramatic. It sells. It's more about feeling good than environmental results.
Okay. And we're going to go into the next video.
Why did the
probably.
little girl fall
Yep.
off the swing?
And,
Because she had no arms.
Ricky Gervais. Maybe we could spend some time and listen to Ricky Gervais for a while. Anyways, I appreciate the comments of everybody. It's a huge conversation. It's not something that's going to be, in an hour's show, totally discussed to the point where we're going to get all the information we need. But here, we'll just, I guess, listen
Greta
into a little bit more.
Thunberg being sort of the leading climate change advocate. So the process of infantilization in some ways goes back also many decades. Along with rising secularism, rising narcissism, you see rising infantilism where people take longer to become adults in societies. That partly just as a result that prosperity has meant that we haven't needed to become, the kids don't need to help their parents on the farms anymore. You've seen the decline of chores The decline of chores, the decline of free play, these factors are viewed by psychologists as the drivers of the rising anxiety and narcissism in young people. So they're really getting it from all directions. And so you can see people starting to act out and starting to trying to get particular psychological needs met in adulthood through climate advocacy.
Do you worry about eco-terrorism?
There has been some episodes of violence by environmentalists. It's often, I don't think it's the main event. I worry much more about the ways in which these things undermine civilization, undermining cheap energy. You know, civilization is not super complicated. Like, you need three basic things: cheap energy, law and order, meritocracy. If you'd like to have a liberal democracy, then you would want also equal justice under the law, you would want free speech, you'd want free markets. We see all six of those foundations of liberal democratic Western civilization under attack by the radical or woke left, with a view of replacing all those things with some different moral order, one based on a hierarchy of racial hierarchy, on an idea that one's sex is determined by the individual, and also based on this idea that the world is coming to an end from climate change and that we need to radically reduce our energy and food consumption and supposedly harmonize with the natural environment, even though that involves expanding our environmental footprint. So I do worry more about the anti-civilization impacts than I do about the tactical behaviors, though certainly we saw in Britain with the Just Stop Oil last year, at least one motorist killed as part of those Just Stop Oil protests.
Well, the reason I ask is because if you do have people who genuinely believe the world is doomed and everyone on planet Earth could die, or at least a significant population, there could be a significant population wipeout, and you want to stop that from happening, then anything's justified, isn't it? So that's why I suppose that's why I'm asking, and particularly in Britain, this has happened particularly in Britain, where, as you say, we've seen Just Stop Oil and other protest groups becoming more radical in their actions. Do you think that there is a particular British phenomenon in this? Why hasn't it happened in America, for example?
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, it is interesting to see how extreme the British activists have become. We certainly have our share of them in the United States. I think it's more diluted across a bigger country. Things are so concentrated in Europe. It's just a smaller area. Things are so concentrated in Britain in particular. So I do think, it is a peculiar quality of this country. Britain is very secular now, but it was very religious. And I think that I see in my kinder moments, I'll see the climate activists as real spiritual seekers. The final chapter in my book, Apocalypse Never, is called False Gods for Lost Souls, and I do think that these are lost souls who are really, they need some sort of purpose, and in failing to find that purpose through conventional means, namely work and love, but also some sort of more benign spiritual practice, we start to see them engaging in a kind of political extremism. So I do think there is reason to worry about the radicalization. That being said, I also think that sometimes these movements can die out as the media discourse shifts, because in many ways these are just creations of the media that have used this issue to create alarmism and to generate fear, because fear sells newspapers. And so I think to the extent to which the news media start to move on to other issues, the crisis in the Middle East, economic problems, and as the renewables agenda comes into crisis and the climate science comes back much less apocalyptic every year, I do hope that we will see climatism, if not come to an end, then at least diminish in its societal power.
Do you have any advice to parents who are concerned about their children's radicalism in this area, or even just their children's beliefs in this sort of doomer-esque climate agenda? And what would you say to parents to try and sort of deprogram their kids, because they might be surrounded by all sorts of TikTok videos and their friends telling them things, and even their teachers, and as a parent you've got a bit of power over your child, but it's quite difficult to control all of those other things that might be influencing their ideas on this.
Yeah, that's right. I think that young people, particularly adolescents, are much more influenced by their peers than they are by their parents. That being said, I think that kids do take what their parents tell them very seriously, even if they pretend that they're not doing that, speaking from personal experience here. And I think asking questions is often a good way to go, and also even asking your children for some evidence to back up some of the claims that they're making. I think rather than getting into a kind of heated argument or a debate about it, asking their kids for references. If they're saying things like climate change is ending the world, it's where did you get that from? And can you show me the scientific papers? And is that in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change? I wrote Apocalypse Never in part because I wanted it to be for friends and family of people that had embraced this climate fanaticism. So you could kind of go through it. It summarizes all the evidence. I point to specific peer-reviewed scientific papers, to parts of the IPCC, and start to pull this stuff apart, around all of it: hurricanes, fires. I gave a talk yesterday, and certainly at environmentalprogress.org, which is the website and the organization that we founded, we have these slides set up, and we try to get the primary data or the top scientific data, and you see that really it doesn't support any of the extreme statements that people make.
Let's talk about the real-world impact of some of these climate policies, or policies that politicians have tried to put in place to tackle climate change, decarbonisation, etc. In the UK, they're obsessed with this phrase net zero by 2050. They're talking about carbon emissions. In California, I know that there's also been some really extreme policies. That's where you live. Maybe you can discuss a bit about what's happened in California, and maybe that acts as a warning to other places around the world.
Well, sure. So in California, we've seen rolling blackouts almost every year over the last 6 years. This is coming at a time when you're having demands for more electric cars, which would require a much larger number of power plants than we have. We've seen our electricity prices rise 7 times more than they did in the rest of the country over the last decade because of these mandates for renewables, solar in particular. One interesting statistic is that in 2021, we received less electricity from zero carbon sources than we did in 2011, despite having had a huge build out of solar. And the reason is simply that we were in a drought year, and so we had less water for hydroelectric dams, and we had shut down a nuclear power plant. So it shows the limits of renewables. Germany has basically flatlined in terms of its renewable energies of the last 3 years, even though they've been installing more wind and solar projects. And the reason is because it wasn't very windy and it wasn't very sunny. And so the vagaries of weather show you just how unreliable renewables are, not just day to day, but also year over year, and the incredible cost that they impose on the society. And so that's why you start to see politicians like the Prime Minister of Britain, but also the Governor of California and heads of state around the world starting to pull back from those extreme commitments.
Okay, that's all the time we have. It's Michael Schellenberger, I believe, speaking in a podcast there. And I was going to I have so many tabs open on my computer, and I was just going to take a chance and a crack at if I had the geoengineering dimming of the sun documentary kind of there, but as soon as I go to look, the video plays, and so we just had a bit of a conversation here at the end of the show from Michael Schellenberger talking about the very thing that we were talking about, which is climate change, the world that we're in, what we're doing with it. And I did notice, Dustin, welcome to the show. We haven't seen you before. It's the first time on, so thanks for being with us. Appreciate your comments. And yes, we're very respectful on the show, no matter who has what perspective kind of thing. I did notice that you were giving some explanation of why you don't believe that that we're being sprayed or whatever, or that geoengineering exists. If you're open to it and you want to see a documentary that pretty much spells it out as much as I can see anyways, gives all the facts, gives the history, all the patents, shows the history of it, talks to first party people. And in this movement, if you will, scientists, everything, just email me, sudburynews@gmail.com, and I'll email you the documentary. And you can watch it, it's, if anything, entertaining, right? It'll be just entertaining, even if you don't agree with what they're saying or whatever. You can then take what they say in the documentary. You said you've done your own research, but I would conclude that anybody who is in anything. Like I went to school, to college, but I needed more research, so I went to university, and then I needed more, and then I did my master's, right? So no matter what research we do, we can always do more. And I'm continually learning no matter what on life in general. So we can never stop learning. So maybe there's some more research can be done. And if you're interested in that, send me a email at sudburynews@gmail.com, and I'll send you that link. And if you still have, you want to see the proof, perfect. So then just email me and I'll send you that documentary. It pretty much spells it all out. There's more information than what's in the documentary, but I think they've done a great job. It's found at geoengineering.org. It's called Dimming of the Sun if you want to look it up yourself. But you can email me, not a problem. Thanks for being on the show, along with all the other people today too. We really appreciate everybody. It's a conversation we have, and today's Friday focus on the climate. As usual, next Friday, same thing. We'll have some more. Appreciate everybody. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU 96.7 FM. We're also online at cklu.ca and facebook.com/SudburyNews, youtube.com/SudburyNews, twitter.com, now x.com/SudburyNews, and Sudbury.news. Click on the radio, click on the Sudbury News Talk tab, and you can watch us on demand after the show. The conversation, though, will continue, and I can tell it's going to continue on Facebook after the show. So stay tuned for Earshot Daily on CKLU. We'll see you on Monday, same time, same place, on the same platforms. Appreciate you. Have a safe and wonderful Friday and weekend, everyone. Stay warm and stay dry. Ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.